Well, welcome back to Brent's Anime News Corner for April 24th, 2011. Time to get to the news. Some interesting stuff this week. Starting with Manga Magica's final episode, which aired, let's see here, when was this? Friday morning. It got a 2.3% rating in the Osaka area. Meaning that of all televisions in the Osaka area, 2.3% of them were tuned in for that ending. Moreover, 22.6% of all Kansai households with the television on. I'm sorry, we're watching the final episode of the Magical Girl Anime. That's right, the 2.3% rating is different. So 22% of almost a quarter of all households with the television were tuned in to the final episode of Manga Magica. So that's pretty darn big. Again, that's not, all across Japan, that's just one reason, but that's pretty darn cool. Kansai is the district that has Osaka in it, so, I'm sorry, that is in Osaka, so pretty major area. Meanwhile, moving on to some licensing news, actually. Funimation has been licensing stuff like crazy. They picked up Arya the Scarlet Ammo, which is still being released over in Japan, so they'll be simulcasting it over here. A sort of girls with guns story. They've also picked up Senko no Night Raid and Fairy Tail, also the live-action movie Treasure Hunter. So all of those will be released, obviously not simulcast, those last two will be just released in general. Moving on, let's see here, to other anime news. Actually, was there... Yeah, so there's going to be a new anime of Rurouni Kenshin, the classic Shonen Jump title from the 90s. This is kind of surprising because it really hasn't seen much activity at all for quite a while. There were two OVAs that sort of took it more seriously. Now, there was, I believe, a PSP game released, released last month, which is a bit of a surprise. And so apparently they're going to be doing that that soon. All we know is that there will be an anime version of Rurouni Kenshin. We don't know if this is going to finish off the arc that never got fully animated yet. If this will be a readaptation, who knows? But it's a good thing. And by the way, I apologize. It's Jump Square that announced that, not Shonen Jump. So very darn cool that we will be getting new Kenshin. Interesting to see how they'll be doing that visually, and what it'll look like. But who knows? In other news, let's see here. So the next volume of Haruhi will be getting 513,000 copies in its initial print run. This is a record for light novels. The next will be The Surprise of Haruhi Suzumiya. It'll ship in actually two 300-page volumes. It's actually publishing over 1 million individual, books for this. So, 513,000, sets of two, if you will. So that's pretty darned impressive. It also bundled a special booklet containing a short story about Kyon's time in middle school. Interesting. And that will drop on May 25th in Japan. Also in Haruhi and the printed word news, Katakawa Group Publishing Company will be releasing 2 books teaching English vocabulary using Haruhi Suzumiya characters. So not only will it be teaching them practical English, it'll also be teaching them catchphrases from Haruhi. So you'll be able to, if you're Japanese, learn how to say, "That information's classified," in English. It's wonderful. The explanations are written by Hiroki Izumo, a Waseda University doctoral student and lecturer. The first book highlights about 1,100 words from the novel's actual text, while the second covers about 600 words. So basically, it's kind of teaching you how to translate the Japanese novels, light novels of Haruhi into English, if you will. Kind of interesting. The 2 volumes cover about 2,700 words overall. Not only is it illustrated with does it have illustrated front covers, there will also be a poster within, which is pretty darn cool. And they will ship pretty darn soon now, looking. So that's interesting. Things not looking so bright for New Zealand, which passed an internet copyright bill. For those of you interested in copyright infringing activities and having to live down in New Zealand. The bill is called the Copyright Infringing File Sharing Amendment Bill, which passed by a huge margin, 111 to 11. Will go into effect September 1st, so a little ways from now. And it basically now has a 3-notice system for alleged copyright infringement. Quote from Anime News Network: Internet users caught downloading movie and music downloads without authorization will be given warnings on their first 2 acts. On the 3rd act, users can be penalized by up to U.S. equivalent of $10,000 and or a 6-month internet suspension at the request of copyright holders. End quote. So pretty serious, significance if you do end up, doing that. So don't do that if you're in New Zealand. That was pretty bad. Unless it gets repealed or changed or something before it actually gets passed. So interesting. And actually, someone on the chat room is asking how is it that could track. Companies like or countries like New Zealand and Australia and others have much tighter control over internet use than others, just because there are so few ISPs in general. I believe New Zealand only has like 2 ISPs, so it's much easier for the government to come in and track and ask for information and so forth and so on. So it's just a lot easier to control because it's just that kind of situation. Moving on, sort of an odd bit of news. Studio Dean has announced that they will be animating a Hatsune Miku music video. That's about all we know. It's part of a joint project called Cosmic Record, creating basically a label for these anime music videos and such. So interesting, and probably the first time we've seen a major anime studio decide to do an actual music video for a Vocaloid like that. But that's pretty darn cool. And speaking of Hatsune Miku, Good Smile and Bandai Namco have announced they're working on a game called Nendoroid Generation, where it's basically a role-playing battle and dance game for the PSP, which includes basically Nendoroid versions of various anime characters, including characters from Black Rock Shooter, Fate Stay Night, Magical Girl Lyrical Nenoha, and the Melancholy Haruhi Suzumiya. So they've hit some of the absolute major franchises in anime right now, and they'll all be able to, hit each other. So that's awesome. Speaking of Japanese productions like that, Nico Nico Doga has launched a new beta site. They launched that, I believe, on Monday, which features an English language version of the site. Now, here's the thing. Nico Nico Doga is basically the YouTube of Japan. Absolutely huge, lots of features, and it's kind of where a lot of otaku hang out. So the idea that we can kind of get into Nico Nico Doga would be a pretty big thing for us, in terms of being able to get access to a lot of that content and sort of have our own sort of in to that service. That'd be pretty darn cool. The site will be available at, let me just see if I can pull up the actual thing. It'll be at niconico.com, Nico.com, and you can go ahead and give it a try if you can get in. So that's nice of them, getting that out there. We'll see how that goes. Meanwhile, let's see here. Oh yeah, this is quite interesting. Ken Akamatsu, creator of Love Hina and Negima and so forth, sat down with Kentaro Takekuma, who was one of the creators on Even a Monkey Can Draw Manga. Excuse me. And they did an interview about digital manga in Japan, revealing all sorts of interesting information about sort of the current state of digital manga publishing in Japan. They said the publishers are kind of looking down on the whole free ad-supported model, but they're still open to it. They revealed that j-comi, the site that Kanakamatsu created for this free ad-supported manga distribution, brought in about $6,000 just for the creator Mayu Shinjo. And Akamatsu is currently working with Google to create a web viewer with dynamic advertising, sort of integrate Google AdSense into it. Mayu Shinjo has done, amongst many other things, let's see here, Sensual Phrase, Akuma no Eros, Fiancé Shitai, Love Celeb, all sorts of other stuff. Probably 12 different manga. So $600 or $6,000 is pretty impressive, and it's a total of about 10 different volumes. So getting $600 per volume for out-of-print manga, sign me up. Let's see what else. They've also confirmed that translated versions are already in the works. They have been restricted to manga series that are no longer in print, and Takekuma has noted that one of the problems with the whole out-of-print thing is that about 10 years after Shogakukan published, or after they published it and after they canceled Even a Monkey Can Draw manga, Takakuma contacted them and said, okay, it's been canceled, can you please list it as out of print so that I can publish it elsewhere? And Shogakukan then responded by reprinting it, thus putting it back in print so they can make more money off of it. Now, on the one hand, that is the publisher saying, oh, there's still interest, let's put out another edition. But it is kind of interesting that it's, there's this certain pressure to keep things out of being out of print in Japan. So that'll be interesting to see. Also information on how much manga publishers are paid per page, as well as how new talent is found. And also an interesting thing, saying Akamatsu claims that the major magazines that are running the major titles, the editors are getting less and less involved with the actual creators. For a long time, the editors would work very closely with creators to say, hey, this may be your first or your second title. We've seen a lot of these come and go. We can kind of give you advice as to what works and doesn't work. And unfortunately, editors are increasingly hands-off with that, which is a bit of a problem. I mean, anyone needs, someone else's advice now and then, and it certainly needs some advice some sage advice from folks who've been doing it for a long time. So that is a bit of a concern. Other information available at AnimeNewsNetwork.com. Just look for the article titled Love Hina and Kamipo Creators Discuss Future of Manga. Finally, sad news of the week. Famed anime director Osamu Dezaki passed away this past week due to lung cancer. The image that Anime News Network has of him is of him smoking, so that does say something. Among the many works he directed were Eso Nerai, the Air film, Ashita no Joe, Blackjack the movie, the Clannad film, Genji Monogatari, Go-Go 13 the Professional, Mighty Orbots, Nobody's Boy Remy, The Rose of Versailles, The Snow Queen, Space Adventure Cobra, Treasure Island, episodes of Astro Boy, and several Lupin the Third television episodes and specials. He had a very unique style of direction, very well known. One of those things where folks will say, oh, that's an Osamu Dezaki work. He worked at Mushi Productions with Osamu Tezuka, and he co-founded Madhouse in 1972. So major talent that is now sadly lost to us. So very sad. And that's all the news for this week. So thank you all for joining me, and I will see you next week.